Welcome to another deep dive. This time, it's the Book of Ruth, and specifically Chapter 1, like you requested. You want to get a grasp on the beginning of Ruth's story.
Yeah, it's really about those first few chapters, huh? You know, like what are those key themes? What are those little details that really set the stage for everything that happens later on? And we gotta remember, this is during the time of the judges, as the book says.
And that's not exactly known for, like peaceful times, hardship, even famine.
Oh, yeah. Definitely not a happy-go-lucky setting. I think that's what's fascinating here, actually. The author uses this setting to heighten the stakes,
Makes sense.
It's like, imagine a family just driven by sheer desperation. And that's where we meet Elimelech, Naomi, his wife, and their sons, Mahlon and Kilian. They've got to leave their home in Bethlehem.
Bethlehem, wow.
And they head for Moab.
Moab. Wait, that was outside the Israelite community, right? I mean, that was a huge deal back then.
It was a huge decision, both culturally and religiously, and I think that signifies just how desperate things were for them. They were leaving behind everything familiar, venturing into the unknown, almost have to put yourself in their shoes to really understand the weight of that choice.
Yeah, it makes you think about what you would do if you were in that kind of situation. Desperate times. So what happens when they get to Moab? It's not exactly a vacation, is it?
No, it's definitely not a vacation. Tragedy strikes. It's pretty heartbreaking. First, Elimelech, the father, he dies.
Oh, wow.
So Naomi's left alone with her two sons, but then both sons end up marrying Moabite women. Mahlon marries Ruth, and Kilian marries Orpah.
Okay, so those marriages, those are going to play a big role, right? I
Yeah.
can see the cultural dynamics already starting to come in.
Oh, yeah, for sure. They become pivotal to how the story unfolds. So they're trying to rebuild their lives in this new place, but then another tragedy hits.
Don't tell me.
Both sons die too, leaving Naomi a widow and childless in a foreign land. It's just like complete upheaval for her, a devastating series of losses, one after the other. And it's at this point that Ruth, the daughter-in-law, really takes center stage.
Okay, so we've got this incredible backdrop of hardship and loss. What about Naomi's faith? Where does that fit into all of this?
Well, she hears news that the famine back in Bethlehem has ended. Like God has provided for his people once again. And so she decides to return home. But, and here's the incredible part, she urges her daughters-in-law to stay in Moab.
To stay? Really? That's interesting. You'd think she'd want to hold on the family, especially after everything she's gone through.
I know, right? But she's thinking of their well-being, even in the midst of her own suffering. I think it's a real testament to her selflessness. She understands the hardships they would face as widows in that culture where marriage and children were so emphasized. In fact, she even says to them, "May the Lord enable each of you to find security in the home of a new husband." It's like her blessing for them to move on.
It's a pretty amazing scene to imagine, that farewell. A real mix of hope and despair. But there's a twist coming, right?
Oh, yeah. Orpah, heartbroken. She chooses to return to her people and her gods. And, that decision, it makes sense given everything. But Ruth, she does something extraordinary. She refuses to leave Naomi's side.
And that's where we that famous line, right?
You got it. Ruth declares, "Wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you live, I will live. Your people will become my people, and your God will become my God." It's powerful stuff. Those words, they're so much more than just a promise. They're like a declaration of loyalty that goes beyond any cultural boundaries.
And beyond just obligation, really. She's a Moabite woman choosing to follow her mother-in-law, a woman who's lost everything, back to a land that isn't even her own. It's incredible. What must that have felt like?
It's hard to even fathom all the emotions, the uncertainty, the courage it must have taken to make that choice. It really speaks volumes about the depth of their bond, their shared destiny despite their different backgrounds.
So they make this journey back to Bethlehem. What are they walking into? It doesn't sound like a joyous homecoming.
Not exactly joyous, no. It's more like the start of a whole new beginning, but one that comes with its own set of challenges. The people there, they're shocked to see Naomi again after all these years, especially in the state she's in. Imagine the whispers, the stares, and Naomi herself, she's filled with bitterness. She even asks people to call her Mara, which means bitter.
Mara, huh?
Yeah, quite a contrast to her given name, Naomi, which means pleasant.
It's like by taking on that name Mara, she's embracing the bitterness, letting it define her. It really reveals just how deep her struggle is, with her faith, with her losses.
Exactly, and that sense of loss, it really becomes a defining element as they return to Bethlehem. Remember, this is a society that places a huge emphasis on family, lineage, social standing. all the things Naomi has lost.
So what about Ruth? How does she navigate this new world she's chosen? She's a Moabite outsider. What kind of challenges might she face?
That's the big question that hangs in the air as chapter 1 comes to a close. Their arrival in Bethlehem, it's a turning point for both of them. And it leaves us wondering, how will their destinies, now so intertwined, unfold against this backdrop of loss and uncertainty?
Yeah, it's almost like with their arrival, you see these two separate journeys begin, but they're also intertwined, right? Naomi grappling with her faith, Ruth stepping into this whole new world.
Yeah, you got it. It's a really brilliant literary device that the author uses. You see these parallel journeys unfolding, and each woman, they're confronting their own challenges, their own uncertainties.
And you can't forget those cultural differences that are at play here.
Yeah.
Ruth, she's a Moabite woman, stepping into a world that might not be all that welcoming.
Exactly, and that's what makes her loyalty to Naomi so powerful, right? She's leaving behind everything familiar, her family, her gods, her whole way of life, and for what? To follow a grieving widow back to a land that, who knows, might even reject her. It's pretty amazing.
Makes you think about what must have been going through her mind at that point, huh? What was she expecting to find in Bethlehem? What were her hopes, her fears?
Well, we can only speculate. But I think her actions speak pretty clearly, don't you think? That declaration she makes where you go, I will go. It's more than just love for Naomi. It's a declaration of faith, too.
Faith in Naomi, or faith in something bigger.
Maybe both, right? She says, your God will become my God. So there's this willingness to embrace the unknown, to step into Naomi's faith tradition, even though it's totally foreign to her. It's like she's saying, I'm not just following you, Naomi. I'm following the God you believe in.
Wow. Yeah, that's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
It adds this whole other layer to her journey, doesn't it? Like there's this spiritual dimension unfolding alongside the physical and emotional one.
Absolutely. And let's not forget that historical context, right? This is the time of the Judges, a period marked by chaos and uncertainty, a time when people were, kind of searching for something to hold on to, something to believe in.
So you've got these two women arriving in Bethlehem, each carrying their own burdens, each seeking their own kind of redemption. It's a powerful image.
Yeah, it is. And the author, he doesn't let us forget that timing is important here. They arrive in Bethlehem right at the beginning of the barley harvest.
Oh, yeah. I didn't think about that. What's the connection?
Well, the harvest, it represents a time of provision, of new beginnings, right? It's a reminder that even in the midst of loss, there's still hope. Hope for renewal, hope for abundance.
It's almost like the author's hinting at something, isn't it? Like maybe something good will come from all this suffering. That maybe their journey isn't just about loss, but about the possibility of something new, something better.
I think so. And that imagery of the harvest, it stands in such stark contrast to the backdrop of hardship that we see during the time of the Judges. It's like this beacon of hope shining through all that darkness.
It's amazing, right? We've got Naomi wrestling with her faith and her grief. And then we've got Ruth embracing this new faith and facing this totally uncertain future. It's like they're both on these parallel journeys of self-discovery, and each one is mirroring and influencing the other.
And the author just weaves those journeys together so masterfully. I think that's what makes the book of Ruth so compelling, so timeless. It's a story about loss, about loyalty, about faith and redemption. But it's also about the power of human connection to overcome even the most difficult circumstances.
And we're only scratching the surface here, really. It makes you want to just keep diving deeper, to see how their stories unfold, how they navigate the challenges that are waiting for them.
And that's exactly what we're going to do in the final part of our deep dive. We'll explore the nuances of their relationship, those cultural complexities they have to face, and ultimately that message of hope and redemption that emerges from their shared journey.
We've talked about all this loss and loyalty and their journeys of faith, but, coming back to Bethlehem like this, it's not really a happy ending, is it? It feels like it's just the start of a whole new set of problems.
Yeah, it definitely is. You have to remember what kind of society they're returning to. A place where family lineage, social standing, all of that, it's huge GE. And that's exactly what Naomi's lost, right? And for Ruth, well, as a Moabite, she's going to be the outsider. I mean, she could be met with prejudice, suspicion, who knows? Her loyalty is admirable, no doubt. But, it might come with a price.
It makes you think about how we define family and community even today, doesn't it? I mean, Ruth's devotion to Naomi, it really shows us that those connections, they can go so much deeper than blood, than just being related.
Oh, for sure. And it's even more powerful when you think about, the whole historical context.
Right.
The Book of Ruth, it happens during a time of upheaval when people are really just searching for something solid, something to believe in. It makes you think about Naomi, what's it going to take for her to find hope again in this place where she used to belong, I mean. And what about Ruth? How will she ever find her place in this new world, this new culture? She's chosen it, but
it's almost like the story is reflecting our own lives back to us. We all have these times where we're faced with challenges, uncertainties, moments where we have to, lean on faith or look for strength in the most unexpected places.
That's so true. And I think that's a big part of why the Book of Ruth is still so relevant today, even after thousands of years, because it reminds us, even when things are really dark, there's always the possibility for something better, for hope, love, blessings we never saw coming. And those blessings, well, sometimes they come from the most surprising sources, a different country, a different culture, a bond that's forged in the middle of hardship. You just never know.
Right. So we've gone through this incredible first chapter. We saw those losses, Naomi's struggle with her faith, and Ruth's loyalty. And now they're here in Bethlehem. But it's like, it's not the end, is it? It's like another beginning.
Exactly. And I think as we go into the rest of the Book of Ruth, the big question we have is, how are their lives, now so closely tied together, going to unfold? What will they teach us in the end about faith, about resilience, about how even the toughest situations can be overcome by human connection? That's the real deep dive, I think, waiting for us in the rest of the book.
And that's where we'll leave it for today. We'll pick back up next time and see what unfolds for Naomi and Ruth. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.